with empathy, with a bit of understanding, and also with Philipp Schuch today of Shopware. Welcome. It's your presentation. Okay, wake up again, please. Wake up again. You've just been so relaxed, but now you have to wake up a little bit because now we are going to take the final sprint, as it were. Do you know this? You've got an idea. And then you think, well, that's cool, isn't it? That's it, exactly. That is the next unicorn. That's the business idea. I'm going to be ever so rich. This is going to really make me some money. I suppose you all had that once. And in most cases, you would then, of course, have to set up your own business and then turn it into a product, of course. And today, this is not so difficult any longer to actually market your own idea, because we have Kickstarters or Indiegogo. You simply have to put in your idea and find other stupid people who like the idea as well. And all of a sudden, you can set up your own startup. You'll get a bit of money from them as seed money, and then you can start working in the market. So this means that you have one startup after the other mushrooming from the ground, just like weeds. And the way it goes, of course, is that most of these startups after 2 years go bust. At the latest, after 2 years. What is this all about? You had the idea in your head, and it was really very cool. But in the market, of course, it may not be so well accepted. People might not like it. My product has nothing to do with the people. Nobody really wants it. Nobody wants to have my product. And then, of course, in the last few years, you might have thought, okay, fine. It's not enough to simply have good ideas. No. You have to focus on people more. So we need to have a customer-focused approach. And of course, we are very good at inventing buzzwords in our business. We might have human-centered design. That's a new trend that we have to do, absolutely, or user-centered design. And recently, I heard customer centricity or customer focus. Now you might say, okay, customer focus, I mean, we've been doing that all along, that is nothing new. So why should we now only be in the age of the customer? That's nothing new. Of course I have to focus on my customers. That goes without saying, it's normal. So what does it mean to have a human-centered design? Well, most people dislike the last word, design. I mean, this gives rise to lots of conflicts, because design, for most people, that is something that has to do with colorful pictures and pixels, and this will be done by some creative person. On my behalf, we need a design for our online shop. Okay, let's do a design for our product. So that is something that's done by a creative person. It's not done by you yourself. You're not concerned by that. Design, however, is much more than that. Because a designer has a very specific view of the world. Here, the world is to be set in a larger context. And it means that you have to be able to see problems that others don't see. And here I'm not talking about the colleagues from AfD, the right-wing party in Germany. You have to understand the true problem. So you have to actually get rid of your blinkers. You have to actually lose your restricted view of the world. You have to develop an understanding of the true problem. So you should not look at the status quo. No, you have to question the world as to whether it's good the way it is. For most of the people, however, it's an external service that they simply buy. Let's bring an agency in, and they're supposed to do the design for us. Let's look for a freelancer on the internet. They can certainly produce that for us. However, design is not an occupation. It's a philosophy. It's a mindset, really. It's an attitude. And it should be part and parcel, a permanent part in your corporate philosophy. So this needs to be enshrined in the heads and minds of your people. So the philosophy of resolving problems, human-centered design, means, one way or the other, that we have to focus on the problems that people have. Because only once you actually understand their needs and their habits and their fears will you be able to actually develop the problems for which you can then develop solutions which then make sense to these people. And then you might say, okay, let's make a customer survey. Let's do some customer research, but then we'll find out what they want. Now, the problem is that actually this might be nice, but you will find that we people have one very bad trait, and that is that we tend to lie a lot. That's the first thing that you'll find out. People lie all the time for the most various reasons. We don't want to be seen as stupid. We want to avoid discussions. We want to be polite. Out of politeness, we tend to lie a lot. So it's not always easy to really learn what people want. Some time ago, I was in a new restaurant with my wife. We wanted to try out something new. And, well, the food was, well, just about okay. The waiter and the rest of the service was, well, not so good. And then there is this scene at the end where the waiter then clears the table and then asks you, and was it all okay? This typical question. And it's like an affect that I hear myself saying, yes, fine, super. And a couple of seconds later, of course, I noticed myself that I lied to myself and also to the waiter. So I didn't want to engage in a discussion to tell him how actually bad I found that evening. So he will never learn what I actually thought of his service. And he will not be able to change anything accordingly. So it's not always easy to actually learn what people want, what customers want. Of course, I don't want to badmouth customer research. Of course, it's important to actually have that knowledge, to ask people what they would like to have. But, we'll find that people themselves don't even know what they want. People tend to not know. Then you might say, well, that's rubbish. Of course I know what I want. I want a Porsche car, I want a beautiful house, I want a beautiful wife. It's logical. I mean, everybody knows what they want. Well, the problem is what we want is not exactly the same of what resolves our problems. And that is best described by the following quote. Henry Ford once said, if he had asked his customers what they really wanted, then they would have replied, we want a faster horse. And this is where the entrepreneurial spirit comes in. To know what customers want is certainly not wrong, but you have to look at the true core of this statement. Of course, Henry Ford might have been able to breed faster horses for many years. He would have been good at it too, and people would have been happy about faster horses. But, as my mathematics teacher used to tell me, Philip, take a step back, he said. Look at what you did. And that is exactly what Henry Ford did. He took a step back, and he removed his blinkers, and he thought about the core of this statement. Why is it that people want to have a faster horse? The actual problem is that they want to be able to travel from A to B as fast as possible. And possibly for this problem, there might be a much better solution in order to fulfill that need. So, in order for me to be able to develop such solutions, I first of all have to start with the real problem. And for that, it is important to actually meet people on an equal footing. I need to develop empathy for people. I need to develop an understanding for their needs, their fears, and their habits in order for me to be able to understand their problems. So if I want my product to become part of their daily lives, I myself have to be able to learn about their daily lives. I need to know their daily lives. But how can I develop this empathy? How can I actually gain this empathy and empathetic knowledge about other people? Sometimes it's not so easy. And the first rule here that applies is that I would have to start with myself. I mean, you know the saying, you have to really get your own act together first. If you lack feelings yourself, then, of course, you don't know anything about feelings that other persons might have. And if you master the self-reflection, if you know more about your own habits, then, of course, you can be more open to the needs of other people. And then, all of a sudden, all the other people in your lives turn into users. That here, for instance, is my grandma. This year, she will be 80 years old. And she's a proper grandma, and she's a very loving grandmother, and I love her very much. But my grandmother is also a very special person because she decided at a high age to actually confront technologies. In other words, this means she took a computer course for the elderly, and she actually retrained in all of these matters at her age. And she is in a complete hype at the moment. She's got tablets and smartphones, notebooks, PC. She does online banking. She reserves flights online. She exchanges latest recipes online, and she's completely networked and very, very enthusiastic about this digital world. And for me, it's always very interesting to see how she deals with these technologies, because she did not grow up with that, but she learned this at a late age. And again, you have cases where there is a problem, and then she rings me on the phone, "Philip, please help me. I have deleted the internet." So I then have to go to a place and help her with the PC, because sometimes she doesn't have enough knowledge. And recently, I also installed a new software onto her notebook, and you have this dialogue all the time where you have to approve the license agreement with the terms and conditions. You have to scroll through and click on, and as we all know, of course, we always click go on, until it's done. But what does my grandma do is she takes out her reading glasses and starts reading the text. And then I said, "Grandma, what are you doing? It'll take us the whole night. You don't have to read this. It doesn't matter. Nobody does that." And then my grandmother says, "No. If I sign a contract, of course, I have to read the small print." And then I understood that actually she is right, isn't she? And it's really absurd that everybody just moves on because you agreed to a contract. But for us, it's very natural. We all know this wizard, and we have clicked through it thousands of times, and you never, ever read the license agreement. So that is really something which is not done any longer. But it did show me how much she was trying to actually use her old experiences and applying them to the new ones. So she tried out these old habits, and she tried to transfer them to the new technologies. And you find that we are very dependent on our habits. Because if we do things more frequently for a longer period of time, then of course it seems to be anchored in our subconscious. Our brain doesn't want to spend so many resources on that. It becomes a habit. A couple of weeks ago, I was on holiday with my wife, a wonderful hotel on the beach. And in this hotel, of course, there was a restaurant where we had the breakfast buffet in the morning. And in order to get from the hotel to the restaurant, there was this sliding door. You go up to the door, there is a sensor, and then the door opens. And then after you've gone through, the door closes again. But whenever the door opened here, the problem was that the sand was blown in from the beach. And here the proprietor of the hotel thought about the solution to this. So the sensor on the side of the restaurant was removed, and there was a little button on the wall which helped you to open the door. For me, as someone who knows about these things, it was so pleasant to see this every morning over breakfast, sitting at my breakfast table, because here the expectation of people was completely crossed. They came in with the sensor and the door opened automatically, but when they left, the door didn't open automatically. One morning, there was one old pensioner who actually ran into the door. So this can actually bring up very, very tough problems if what we expect is not fulfilled. And this can be made use of for myself in order to raise attention, of course, but I also have to be very careful because people do assume that there are certain things that work the way that they used to work, because that is how they were trained. They don't know it any better. And if I want my product to become a habit for people, which of course is the best thing that could happen if people quite subconsciously use my product anyway, because for them it's an absolute habit, then of course I have to know what these habits are. I have to develop an understanding for those habits.
Das ist meine kleine Cousine.
That's my cousin. She's just the total contrast to my grandma. She's around 20, part of the Generation Z, Generation Selfie. She's totally grown up with all these things. She knows the ins and outs of the technology. That's almost natural for her. If she has not looked at her smartphone for an hour, she would have hundreds of unread WhatsApp messages. And Lina Marie is always interested in my work. I keep showing her things. So I showed her something, and then you saw this message on the screenshot. So she listened to me and then said all of a sudden, "But Philip, tell me, what does that little toaster icon stand for?" And I was all of a sudden aware of the fact that this symbol of a floppy disk is something that was totally unknown to her. She did never know what it is. She hasn't grown up with a floppy disk because floppy disks don't exist anymore. So this symbol didn't mean anything to her. Well, she would certainly know these symbols. They know them by heart. It goes to show that human beings and their habits change over the years. With a demographic change, there are changes in our needs, our concerns, our habits as well. And at the same time, there's a change in technology as well. The technology we've grown up with, we are growing up with, and the technology we use for interaction. So if I develop a solution for a problem, I always have to renew my thinking. I always have to see and check as to whether the original parameters have changed. Do people still have the same problem? Do they have a different thinking? Do I have different technological options in order to develop a solution that might be better for that problem? Now, how can I make sure that this element of empathy is included in my product development process? I brought along a few examples. I quite like those. And the first one is not brand new. It's pretty old, actually, and some of you might be familiar with that. What you see here is a German average living room. The German average living room is managed by Jung von Matt. They have installed a separate room in their office premises representing an average German living room. This is determined on the basis of the statistical data. And on the top, for example, that's the version 2004, and at the bottom, that's been updated, it's 2016. They use this living room as a meeting room, amongst others. And whenever they talk about new advertising campaigns, when they're developing and generating new ideas, they get a much better feel for their target group because they actually are sitting in people's living rooms. They're sitting in people's living rooms and get a different feel for their target group because they know what it looks like at their home, how people feel in their living rooms, etc. So it is a superb idea in order to get into customers' shoes and develop a feel for your customers. The next example is quite nice as well. It's Prima Donna. It's a lingerie manufacturer, lingerie for women in particular. But of course, there's some men working in that company as well. So the boss thought, well, during the working time, the boys all see these nice posters with the sexy dessous mannequins. But when they develop fashion for ladies, they should at least know what it feels like if a woman has got an e-cup, for example. So they must have the experience what it feels like when they run around with an e-cup. So they actually developed this model with weights attached to that. That would be roughly the weights of an e-cup. And these men had to run around for the whole day or work with these weights on their body for the rest of the day. think it's quite a nice example because it does reflect empathy vis-à-vis the other gender. And for us, it is mostly difficult to put ourselves into the shoes of the others, especially the opposite sex, and to also develop a certain empathy. So I think it's a particularly nice example because it crosses gender borders, if I may say so. Another example that is relatively simple to implement in any product area, that would be the option of personas. We just heard from them. And why not visualize them by way of mancast? So the personas, the target groups I have developed, can thus be integrated in my professional environment. I could put them up in my office. They could get a human character. You could clothe them, and you would, of course, choose clothing that would be worn by the target group. And they can thus become part and parcel of the working environment of your staff. And people working for you could then look at your target group on a day-to-day basis. Now, all these are pretty specific examples, and they are suitable for specific products as well. And everybody has to see how they can actually transform that into their own product world and see how they can create empathy for their target groups. Now, the most important rule is the following: no matter what you're doing, move away from the office desk. Never ever in your ordinary professional environment you will be able to develop empathy for your target group. You have to move away from your office desk. You have to enter into the daily life also of your customers. Listen to the stories of your customers. Listen to what they have to tell you. Listen to all the stories. Get a picture of their day-to-day life. And from all that, try to find out what the customers or the target group's needs and problems are. For you, it means, first of all, remove your blinkers. Get rid of that tunnel vision. Look at the whole picture of the world, and then take a step back. Think carefully, what is the core issue? And only then, once you know that core issue or problem, can you start to develop solutions. And then don't forget, rethink time and again. Always take another step back again and see whether this is still a current situation, and then try to think anew. Thank you very much.
Deine Fans!
These are your fans. Be concrete once again. How do I get to know my customers? If you send a mail, they will be lying, or I'll be lying. What if I don't have an attractive grandma or cousin as you have? I just said, get away from your office desk. Go where your customers are. Maybe don't go to e-commerce events all the time. Why not go to a trade show where you think you will find your customer? Just stand side by side and look at them. Look over their shoulders and say, what's happening on that trade show? How are they doing? Talk to people. So it is about actually listening to people and have them tell you something about your daily life. This is the way I can find out what their actual problem is. I think all the essential things have been said. Are you feeling comfortable? I always feel comfortable. Well, you're working with Shopware. That's why you're feeling comfortable. Philip Schuch, thank you very much.